One more practice before the preseason opener on Thursday as we welcome you to State Farm Stadium and our continuing coverage of Cards Camp 2019, special edition of Cards Cover 2. Craig Grialou alongside Mike Jurecki. And yes, the Cardinals will play and see someone else coming up in a couple of days. The Chargers will be here on Thursday. Chance to hit someone else, chance to see someone else in a different colored uniform. And as we looked down there moments ago, MJ, how about this? This team is in pads.
Full pads, obviously have a walkthrough tomorrow, and they're going to be in full pads, obviously, in a preseason game. So, we didn't know how many padded practices there were going to be. And I thought when the red and white practice, that was the most 11 on 11 we were able to see. And Kyler Murray was able to run, but I think this is going to be more of a vanilla offense. We've seen 10 personnel, 11 personnel, and 12 personnel yesterday, so I think they're going to be vanilla. Obviously, don't want to show anything in the preseason.
Yeah, those first 5 snaps on 11 yesterday during practice, I wrote it down because, like you, MJ, it stood out to me as well. 0 personnel, 20 personnel, 12 personnel, 10 personnel. That's how 11 began yesterday. So if nothing else, this team is certainly going to be creative and more creative offensively than we saw last season. And, of course, 0 personnel is 5 wide receivers, 20 personnel, 2 backs, and that was David Johnson and Chase Edmonds flanking Kyler Murray. 12 personnel, 1 back, 2 tight ends, Ricky Seals-Jones and Max Williams as far as the tight ends. And then 10 personnel, 1 back, 4 wide receivers with David Johnson in the backfield. Again, a lot more creativity than we saw any of 2018. And will we see that on Thursday? That's the question. You brought up a vanilla offense, and Coach earlier today said, hey, it's our base offense. So whatever you want to define base offense, if it's being creative and doing a number of different things with your skill set players, then that's what this offense is going to look like on Thursday. It's just when you get to the regular season, you could do some different things around your quote-unquote base offense.
Well, and I got the impression they're not game planning for the Chargers. We'll see about the Raiders game, and then we always talk about that third preseason game where normally the starters play maybe the first half, maybe a possession in the third quarter, just kind of that dress rehearsal, because none of those guys, at least starters-wise and rotation guys, are going to play in that fourth game. So we'll see if they game plan for any of these opponents. They're going to run their offense. They're going to run their base defense, which is a 3-4. And at that point, Craig, you just got to win some one-on-one matchups. You got to beat the guy in front of you, and that's what football's about, blocking and tackling. As
you look at the position drills, and here specifically the quarterbacks throwing to the receivers, whether it's a wide receiver or the running backs and the tight ends as well. And you see Ricky Seals-Jones out there on the field. He left practice yesterday early, had his hand looked at, but according to Kingsbury, he is, quote, full go, so that is good to see. Also good to see number 89 on the field, Andy Isabella, who we have not seen for a few practices because of a knee issue, but he is in full uniform and going through at least his position warm-ups. Don't think we'll see him during 7-on-7 or 11-on-11, but good to see 89 back on the field.
Yeah, it looks like he's running well. We're sitting up here at the club level, and it looks like he's got a little bit of sleeve on his right knee. And you're always cautious and curious what it's going to be like the next 24 hours. Again, the Cardinals will have a walkthrough. We'll see, as Craig mentioned, how much 11-on-11 he does. But this is impressive. The fact is, he wasn't able to finish practice a few days ago. We didn't know if he was going to be out a week. We didn't know if we were going to see him at some point next week. But the good news is, as Craig pointed out, number 89's out there, and I think it's important that he gets preseason reps, but you don't want to push it to have any lingering effects and lingering into the season.
And another new addition, and actually on the field yesterday, but we didn't see it while we were broadcasting, Chad Williams, number 10, in practice for a second straight day. And this wide receiver position is going to be in the spotlight the entire preseason, but beginning on Thursday, because as we've talked a number of times here, MJ, it's Larry Fitzgerald, it's Christian Kirk. You'd expect the 3 rookies. That's 5. Now, 6, 7, dare I say 8. Who are those final 2 receivers, maybe a final 3 when you get to the regular season.
Yeah, and I think right now, and it's still early, we got a long ways to go. I think Keyshawn Johnson showed it in off-season workouts. It's carried over with his pads. We'll see what he does in his first preseason game, but I think you can make a case he's number 3. And let's not forget, between targets and touches this year, it's going to be Larry Fitzgerald, Christian Kirk, and David Johnson, but we are focusing on the receivers here. You know, it seems like the Cardinals did work out 3 receivers yesterday. We're going to get into that. And when other guys see that, and if you're a guy like number 10, Chad Williams, who's missed a lot of time, you got to get on the practice field. You got to play in the games because right now you're on the outside looking in.
And one of those receivers that will have a huge spotlight on Thursday and beyond, of course, is Kevin White. And that's an addition that the Cardinals made very early in the offseason, someone who's familiar with that spread offense, having played it on the college level at West Virginia. Problem with him, though, so far in his early career is just not being available. And then the consistency here in training camp. He's flashed. And then there have been some issues as well, and Kingsbury brought that up about Kevin White, that we want to be able to see what he's been able to do day in and day out and not have these individual flashes. And as we look at the wide receivers right now, I don't see number 18 out on the field, so we'll have to keep an eye on that as we continue here on this special edition of Cards Cover 2.
Yeah, and he's gotten reps with the first string offense unit when they go 3 wide or 4 wide, so Kevin White's been out there. You don't know if there's something lingering, but obviously he's not in uniform. A lot of guys, when they're not out here, they're getting treatment, and they'll come to practice towards the end, obviously to be with their teammates. But Kevin White is a guy that needs to be out here. Initially he flashed, and then he was a little inconsistent. He doesn't play on special teams, even though I think he's willing to do that. I don't know if it's going to happen overnight. So, again, if they keep 7 receivers, it's all about the 4th, 5th, and 6th, possibly 7th receiver is playing on special teams. And I think that's where Farrell Cooper and Demir Byrd have a better option at that. And then Trent Sherfield, what he was able to accomplish last year playing on special teams.
You brought up the wide receiver workout. The reported workout yesterday that involved 3 wide receivers, including Michael Crabtree, and there was several different reports throughout the day on Monday about he was signed, he was going to sign, and as it turned out, he has not signed. Kingsbury addressed Michael Crabtree, someone he's familiar with, having played at Texas Tech under Mike Leach, and of course Kingsbury's connection to his alma mater. Kingsbury this morning, quote, "We're going to continue to bring guys in that we think can possibly improve our roster. We're going to keep bringing guys in and seeing what fits." He did leave the door open as far as the possibility of Crabtree being signed later. But he also was asked about whether that kind of a signing, someone with experience, is needed in that wide receiver room. And Kingsbury didn't believe so because, yeah, you got Larry Fitzgerald, but they like what they have in that wide receiver room, even though there's a lot of youth.
Yeah, and, I talked to a few people yesterday after practice, and they told me that Michael Crabtree of the 3 wide receivers had the best workout. He was a little bit heavy, and I think that's to be expected considering he hasn't been in any off-season workouts in training camp. And he looks like he still can run that deep route, the post pattern, and he can also run the X routes, meaning he's lineups on the outside because he's got the size, and the Cardinals were hoping that would be Kevin White or Akeem Butler. Just haven't been able to show it consistency in camp. So obviously it always comes down to fit and asking price. And obviously he's got a relationship with Jerry Sullivan. Sullivan coached him his first 2 years with the San Francisco 49ers. He actually held out until week 7, and Jerry mentioned to me that he got him on a Tuesday and he had to get him ready for a game on Sunday, and their relationship obviously got a lot better after that because Crabtree thought he should come in and play right away. Obviously a talented player. The last couple of years in Baltimore, he caught 31 passes when Flacco was in there, and second half of the season he only caught 13 passes when Lamar Jackson was in there, and you can make the case that John Brown's numbers went down. So obviously he got something to prove, but at this point in time, he knows the staff. Okay, he's got a relationship with Larry Fitzgerald and Jerry Sullivan and Cliff Kingsbury. What else is out there? Is he waiting for somebody to go down? Because I think on paper, Craig, he's the number 1 wide receiver out there. Terrence Williams from the Dallas Cowboys, he was another guy that worked out, and they brought a kid in from Akron. So they're going to continue to flood the position. But at this point in time, maybe after Thursday's game, they go back to the table and they say, this is what we're offering, I got to think it's going to be a 1-year deal with incentives. In other words, if you're active on game day, you can make more money. If you get over a certain amount of yards, you can make more money. So obviously an incentive-laden contract, and now he's got to make the decision what's best for him and his family. Does he take it now, or does he wait for somebody to go down over the next 4 weeks?
So obviously wide receiver will be watching on Thursday. The other offensive position, again, outside of number 1, Kyler Murray. But how about the running backs? And earlier today on the Cardinals Red Sea Report, we had Director of Player Personnel Quentin Harris on and asked him, where are his eyes going to be on Thursday? And he brought up several positions that we've talked about here on this show, but he also brought up the number 3 running back. There's David Johnson. There's Chase Edmonds. And then there's a lot of guys in that mix who can do different things. It's just a question of who that guy is. And if you do keep 3, now all of a sudden that's a real tight battle.
It really is. And, TJ Logan obviously has the speed. And you would think in Kingsbury's offense, maybe they can put a handful of plays for him, but you got to do more than just that. TJ Logan could be the kick returner if he gets an opportunity there. And so Logan, but in TJ Foster, he plays on special teams. To me, he's a guy that can catch the ball in the backfield. He's good in pass protection. He can run between the tackles. So depending on what you're looking for, when you look at depth, we know that Chase Edmonds has really looked good. He looks a little bit faster than last year. You could tell he knows the offense. He's playing at a high level. I think he's a good 1-2 punch with David Johnson. So whether they keep 3 or 4, I think it's going to come down to Logan, what he does on teams, and then Foster, more a guy that has more flexibility and versatility when it comes to the running back position.
All right, let's turn things over to the defense and where are some positions that we might want to focus in on Thursday. And how about we go to the secondary, both the safety position and the cornerbacks. And right now the cornerbacks working with that looks like Greg Williams, the one of the position coaches down on the field, working with Chris Jones right now at the goal line. But, hey, Patrick Peterson is not going to be around those first 6 games. We keep harping on it, but you got to make sure people remember. So who is going to be outside of Robert Alford and Tremaine Brock, Byron Murphy? They're going to need some cornerback help, and certainly Jones so far has looked very, very good.
He has. Chris Jones, number 25, and they haven't ruled anybody out. We know we can look at the injury list and maybe just being cautious, but I wonder if Patrick Peterson's going to play at all in the preseason because they got to get some guys ready. And right now I think the top 3 guys are Robert Alford, Tremaine Brock, Sr., and then Byron Murphy. And I think Chris Jones is coming up, and he's a guy that can play inside and outside along with Byron Murphy. Brock can play a couple different positions. So curious to see if Peterson plays at all in the preseason because this team has to get ready for the first 6 games without him. And right now, the guys I mentioned, they're all in the running. We know Alford's going to be the starter. We think Brock will be the opposite corner. If they want to move him inside, that means Murphy's available there. Chris Jones is available. So they have some options, but clearly they're going to miss Patrick Peterson for the first 6 weeks of the season.
And then the other group of players working alongside the cornerbacks, the safeties, with Marcus Robertson eyeing them in the end zone as they work on goal line defense. We know that DJ Swearinger, who returned to practice yesterday, is going to be a starter. Budda Baker is going to be a starter. Josh Shaw has certainly gotten a lot of reps with the first team because of Swearinger's injury early in training camp, but there's another position battle as far as depth. Yes, they are very deep, but you can't keep everybody.
Yeah, and Rudy Ford, it seems like he's really cut his teeth on special teams. Obviously, he provides depth there. Josh Shaw is a guy that can play free safety. He can play corner, so he wears number 27. He's a guy that, again, can play multiple positions. But obviously they like their starters. And then we got 2 rookies they drafted, one in the supplemental draft, and Jalen Thompson and Deontay Thompson from Alabama. So, they got some young guys, and, of course, Swearinger's on the last year of his contract. And at some point you're going to have to commit to the future of Budda Baker. So you wonder how much money can be invested just in that secondary alone. But we'll worry about that down the road. But it's a good dilemma to have when you got multiple players that can do different things inside the box or playing free safety or strong safety.
All right, so that's defense as we focus back over to the offensive end. And, of course, it's going to be the number 1 story Thursday leading into the game, during the game, after the game on Friday and continuing on daily here in training camp, and that is Kyler Murray. The first opportunity, yes, it's just preseason, but it is game action for the first time at the pro level. So far, Murray has made things look very, very easy. I don't expect that to continue. And the question is, how does he handle some adversity? How does he handle, those tighter windows when it's not a defense he's seen the entire offseason and training camp, but it's something else that he has to look to and then adjust accordingly?
Yeah, I mean, we don't know how much he's going to play. They told us to tune in. I would think he's going to get a series. In the perfect scenario, they drive down the field, whether it's 7, 8, 9 plays, and you like to see him punch it in for a touchdown. But if they get a field goal, as long as they don't go 3 and out, and you can't have some penalties, meaning pre-snap penalties, and that's something they're working on. But it is the preseason. You do have a rookie quarterback with a rookie head coach, even though they've been basically working with a system that they don't have in college, where Cliff has been standing on the sidelines, where Bruce Arians and other coordinators would stand behind the huddle. Cliff's been on the sidelines like he's going to be on game day, and he's signaling it into to Kyler, and obviously the headset goes off about 16 seconds. Everyone says 15, but at 16 it goes off. So I'm curious to see how much play clock they use, but it's going to be an adjustment, but they're working on it, and that's what the preseason's for.
Kingsbury asked how will he know if Kyler Murray looked good on Thursday, and his response was, quote, "You'd like him to have a positive outlook and have accomplished what we set out to do," unquote, concerning running the offense. But that question is answered in 3 plays, 10 to 12 plays. That is going to kind of be more of a feel. Again, if he makes it look easy, then you pull him out. Maybe if there's some struggles, as he hits Christian Kirk in stride for a nice deep pass down the near sideline, that I don't think anyone will have an answer until we get to the actual game.
Yeah, and I think the important thing is, obviously you like to have your 5 starters, but if somebody's got something that's nagging, you're not going to push him for the first preseason game. But I think it's important that Murray's out there with the starting offensive line. They're not going to have him playing behind the 2s. And obviously they're going to run a lot of wide receivers in there. But David Johnson, does he get a couple reps just to kind of knock the rust off or take that first hit like Carson Palmer did? I think we're going to see a lot of young guys. They got 12 draft picks. They got 23 rookies in camp. And then you got second-year guys that are trying to make a jump to be a starter. So it'd be interesting to see the dynamics. But obviously they have a plan. But the main thing is no injuries. That's the main thing. And it's football, so it does happen. But for the most part, we haven't had a guy go on IR, and that's a good thing. Going into the preseason, we'll see where you are 3 or 4 weeks from now.
The one thing about Murray that Kingsbury brought up earlier today, it's got nothing to do with what he's done on the field, but what he's accomplished just by having that spotlight on him from day one. And that's what Kingsbury said he was most proud of, Murray, and how he's handled things as being the guy. No grace period. Yet at the same time, Murray has remained humble and diligent in his work, focusing strictly on football, no other outside distractions. Obviously going to school, don't have to worry about that. Baseball's in the rearview mirror, and he has immersed himself, as Kingsbury has, as first-year NFL personnel people.
Yeah, and really the only thing that Kyler's told us about playing from the collegiate level and playing in one of the better conferences and playing in big games is 2 things: the speed of the game and how close these DBs can cover these receivers. And we've talked about when he misses, the ball is still there. It's not airmailing like previous Cardinal quarterbacks, at least in training camp and the preseason. So it'd be interesting just to see, how they go about things. But for the most part, I mean, I got to think that. And again, it's going to be hard to gauge, Craig, because it's going to be a vanilla offense. They're not going to show anything. You mentioned the different personnel groups as we had over the last couple of days. Usually it's been 10 and 11 personnel, which is either 4 or 5 wide. Obviously, you're running back and a tight end in certain situations, but I don't think we're going to know. It's probably going to be hard to gauge, and that's why I say playing with the starters, which they're going to do, and then at some point, guys are going to have to win some one-on-one matchups, and that's where you want to see from the offensive line. Now, I think he can cover up some of those blemishes because he gets rid of the ball quickly, but I think the Cardinals are going to lean their hard hat on trying to run the football behind this offensive line and then open up play action in Murray's ability to throw in tight windows and his ability to escape outside the pocket. So it's going to be hard to gauge because we're really not going to see anything until the first month of the season what this offense is truly going to look like.
That's the voice of Mike Jurecki. I'm Craig Grialou. This is a special edition of Cards Covered 2 as we continue bringing you coverage of Cards Camp 2019 here at State Farm Stadium. One of those 14 open practices here in training camp, more than a year ago and more than a lot of people anticipated, because you have a first-year head coach and the number one overall pick, and how much do you want out there to the public? But certainly been great crowds so far, and would expect nothing less come Thursday when the Cardinals suit up against the Chargers in the preseason opener.
You know, I was listening to Ron Wolfe this morning on 98.7 when I was driving out here with Doug and Wolf, and Wolf brought up a great point. And obviously, being a former player, he thinks a little bit different than us. He thinks when they break camp and they go down to Tempe for those 2.5, 3 weeks, that's when they're going to show their offense. And nobody's going to get a chance to see it, not even us. And they'll likely do it in the bubble because of the heat. So I thought Wolf really made a good point there. You can do a lot here, but we haven't seen the full arsenal. And they're still installing things, whether it's 2-minute offense, 4-minute offense, hurry-up offense. So Wolf brought up a good point, and we're not going to see it. So we're all going to be looking for week 1 against the Detroit Lions.
We've covered a number of different things as far as what to watch for come Thursday. Anything, MJ, that you're interested, you're curious about outside of what everyone else might be paying attention to?
Well, besides the obvious things, I just want to see this team and this coaching staff be able to operate on game day. And again, this is what the preseason is for. They did a dry run, they had a scrimmage, so you want to clean up some of those mental errors, those false start penalties, and we'll see if Kyler's able to draw the opponents off sides during the season because of his snap count and the way he claps before he snaps it. So I love to see no injuries, but I want to see this team be competitive, win at the point of attack, and place. I want to see him. Unfortunately, we're just not going to see Murray for a long time, but we're going to see Brett Hundley, we're going to see Charles Knopf, we're going to see Drew Anderson, who I think's got a really strong arm. I want to see some of these wide receivers step up if they get a chance to play, whether the offensive line's in there with the first string. So I want to see some progress, and what goes from game 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. That's what you're looking for, because right now they got a 90-man roster. When we get down to the nitty-gritty, they're going to have a 53-man roster, and that's going to be the Arizona Cardinals going into the season.
You mentioned the offensive line. Let's get into our news of the day. DJ Humphries, Marcus Gilbert did not practice yesterday. According to Kingsbury, Humphries had a planned off day, and Gilbert is dealing with a tweak of his groin. Humphries in uniform today, but do not see Gilbert in uniform. So as far as practice, perhaps Reese Odiambo or Corey Cunningham could be getting some reps at right tackle. And, of course, we know Mason Cole is getting your left guard first-team reps because Justin Pugh is on the sideline with a shoulder injury. So that unit, of course, it doesn't matter who you have at quarterback, who you have at running back, who you have at wide receiver. If those 5 guys on the offensive line aren't doing their job, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and it's really imperative to this offense if they want to run the ball with David Johnson, and then they obviously want to utilize Murray's skill set, whether it's throwing in tight windows, his mobility to get outside the pocket and extend plays. To me, this is an opportunity for Corey Cunningham and Mason Cole, because I got to think on paper, Craig, these guys are going to be active on game day if they don't start. And it sounds like offensive line coach Sean Kugler wants to dress 7. Some teams dress 8. And that's why you have to have position flexibility. We know Cunningham can play both sides. We know that Mason Cole can play 3 different positions. They're hoping that Max Garcia is ready for the regular season. He can play both guard spots. And then you got A.Q. Shipley, who seems like he's zeroing in on that center position and could be the starter. We don't know that official. But I like the fact that some of these guys that may not start are going to get an opportunity to play with the first-string offensive line, and that can only help the chemistry if it happens to, during the season. And, again, injuries you just can't plan for, but the Cardinals want to create some depth, and a lot of those are young guys. But you also have a couple of veterans in Max Garcia, in Unovich, and you throw in even a guy like Colby Gossett. So there's guys that we don't talk about enough, but they do have some veteran guys besides some of these young guys.
You brought up Mason Cole. He addressed the media following practice yesterday. Cole, if he's not playing center, he's going to play guard. I think his time at tackle is done. He had those reps and the red and white practice, and his first ever reps at tackle on the NFL level were against Terrell Suggs. And Cole's quote was, "That position kind of has outgrown me." Yeah, he played tackle at the college level, but there is a huge difference when you go from college to the NFL. And Cole acknowledged it, recognized it. The Cardinals do as well. So his future in the NFL is going to be in the interior, not on the outside.
Well, I mean, I'll say this. I mean, when you play left tackle or right tackle, there's two things you have to have. You have to have long arms, and you have to have good feet. And some guys are better suited inside where you can hide them a little bit. Not saying that they're hiding them because, again, they're part of the starting five. So it's a little bit different animal out there. You're on an island. Sometimes you don't get tight end help, and you're going against the premier pass rushers in the league. And we've learned over the last couple of years, and I think the Cardinals, when they had Marcus Golden and Jones, it's not only one pass rusher, you have two pass rushers, so you got to protect both sides.
Cardinals continuing with their position drills, the quarterbacks, wide receivers versus DBs. That drill always entertaining, and of course, whenever there is a large roar, chances are number 11, Larry Fitzgerald, made a big play as Robert Alford knocks the ball away intended for Damiere Byrd. So those battles continue, and good to see Swearinger on the field and actually doing a little bit more than what he did yesterday as Brett Hundley in the pocket and fires over the head of Hakeem Butler. But those one-on-one battles, yeah, you win the game in the trenches, but this team offensively needs to see some separation from the guys that are split on the outside as far as the wide receivers are concerned.
Yeah, and that was great coverage on Hakeem Butler. And I didn't look exactly on the offensive line. Did he get off press coverage? The corner was going to hip to him down the sidelines, and so at that point in time, he really didn't have an opportunity to catch the ball. And that's one thing that he's going to have to work on in the future.
You got your four quarterbacks in addition to Kyler Murray and Brett Hundley, Charles Knopf, and Drew Anderson. And just noticed we actually have a famous face, if you will, down on the field with team president Michael Bidwell about the 40-yard line. The governor, Doug Ducey, is in the house taking part of Cards Camp here at State Farm Stadium. So, look, everyone wants to see number one, including the governor.
When the governor's here, I always look for the Secret Service or the security guards, and obviously he has a close relationship with Michael Bidwell. He's been a huge Cardinal fan. And so it's always nice. He's here every year, and I'm sure he's going to be at a lot of games upcoming season.
Of course, the Cardinals preseason opener comes your way on Thursday. Pre-game coverage on the Arizona Cardinals radio network begins at 3:30. Paul Calvisi and Bertrand Berry will have the call beginning at 7. If you want to watch the game, 12 News, 6:30 pregame. Dave Pasch and Ron Wolfley will have the television call, and of course myself and Mike Jurecki postgame with Cardinals Talk. The next Cardinals practice here at State Farm Stadium coming your way on Saturday and Sunday. Again, special coverage here on a special edition of Cards Cover 2 coming your way this weekend. As we sign off here on this Tuesday, special thanks to those behind the scenes, Jim Omohundro, Grayson Choi. Don't forget, 7 o'clock here at State Farm Stadium on Thursday, Cardinals and Chargers, the preseason opener. And we'll talk to you then on Thursday here on Cards Cover 2.